Hello everybody, welcome back. I'm Matt, and thank you for stopping by the channel. Now I haven't tied a Smoky Mountain pattern in a while, so I figured I was about due. And the next one that I'd been eyeing from Don Kirk's Hatches and Fly Patterns of the Great Smoky Mountains is called the Hillbilly Copper John. Now we all know the history of the Copper John, created by John Barr sometime in the 1990s, so it's not an old fly, but it has been one of the most popular flies in America for the last 30 years. And rightfully so, it's just a great pattern. It can be effective almost everywhere, any kind of trout water. So how is the Hillbilly Copper John different? Well, it's just a variant of the standard. It's tied on a curved shank hook, and I know a lot of variants are also tied on a curved shank hook, but this one also has black goose biots for the tail, and then the partridge legs are trimmed so they're just a little bit stubby. So it's kind of a black-tailed, stubby-legged, curved shank Copper John. It's not any harder or easier to tie than a standard Copper John, but if you're looking for another variant, this one's not a bad one to go to. And it's a pretty cool pattern. I think you're going to like it. Let's give it a shot. So there you go, in the vise, the Hillbilly Copper John. You can see the black goose biots, and then of course it's on a curved shank hook. I'm tying this on a size 14, just general curved shank hook, scud hook, whatever you got. That's 2.8 millimeter tungsten bead. You could use copper, be fine, or brass bead, I mean. And I'm using 0208, probably 6 or 7 wraps. It's really just going to be under the thorax, and it'll help hold the bead in. So break that off, spin it around so I can get it jammed up in the bead right there. Break it off on the back end. All right, it didn't go up in there as much as I want, so let's make sure I get it. Okay, I think we're good there. Black 70 denier UTC. I'm gonna put a dam right behind this weight and take a few wraps up over it and then take it all the way back to the tail. Now you don't have to worry about a step being and getting a perfect taper between the body and that weight. So I'll show you. We're going to fill that in with our copper wire in just a minute. But before we do that, let's take some black goose biots. Find the right size to match your hook. I'm going to pull, I think 2 of these right here will work. Now the hardest part of a goose biot tail is flipping one of them around so that you've got that concave sides or convex sides together and you've got them splayed out. So measure your length, probably a good hook gap. Try to lay them where you have one on one side of the hook and one on the other. And a tip here is to have them a little bit closer to your side so that this first wrap, it might spin them around a little bit. So I'm going to put 2 wraps on it right there before I check my position, before I really lock them in. Okay, I think they're coming off all right there, and I like that little bit of downward slope. That's one of the advantages of this curved hook. So I'm putting some medium wraps right here before I tighten it down. If I really tightened it back there, I might end up spinning them. So now we can tighten it a little bit, some tighter thread wraps. I got a little bit excess right there I could trim, but not gonna worry about it. I'm going to next take my size brassy copper wire. And on this size 14, you could probably go up to a medium, I'm sure it'd be fine. I'm going to catch it in right behind that weight on my side of the hook here, and then just try to lay it back parallel. You want to keep this as smooth and even as possible because any lumps or imperfections in this underbody will be exacerbated when we wrap this wire. So I'm trying to keep it smooth, and if you want to, put a few extra wraps right here just to try to make it a little bit more of a taper, maybe a little bit thicker up front, but I don't think it's all that important. So I'm going to leave my thread about, right there. That's where I'm going to stop wrapping this copper body. So my goal when I'm wrapping these Copper John bodies is just wraps right next to each other and try to minimize any black showing through. So if you have your rotary, it's a good time to use it. If not, just take your time and wrap them up by hand and stop when you get to the back of that weight. Okay, now when you've got it up to the front, go ahead and a couple of wraps, tight wraps to bind this wire in. And I'm going to push it forward and just take a couple more wraps up here. That way when I spin it to break it off, I don't risk it unraveling on me. And feel that if you got a little sharp nub right there, you might want to just bury it with a couple of thread wraps. In this particular case, I did not feel one. So next up is some Mirage tinsel, some pearlescent tinsel in a size large or medium is going to be fine. Just tie this on right on the top. This is going to be the shiny part of our flash, our wing case, our flashback. So I got a couple wraps there. I'm checking it. Is it coming off the top? Yeah, I think it is. So I'm going to take my thread back up a turn. Now I'm using a Thinskin. And the only one I have is an olive, but that's quite all right because it's not really going to show when we have that dark peacock herl underneath. You might see these speckles, but probably not. So what I've done, I've cut a thin strip, less than a hook gap wide, just enough to make the right wing case side. Cut a little slant on the front, just makes it a little bit easier to tie in. And one wrap, check my position there. Okay, I'm going to be good with that. Now a couple wraps back. Now before you go to the next step, here's what I like to do. I like to just fold it over and check my length. Is that going to be long enough of a wing case? I think it's going to be too short, so I'm going to take maybe 2 more wraps back, and don't be afraid to go over that copper if you need to. Okay, let's check this. That's the right size thorax I want right there, so we're good to go. Next up is the peacock herl. So I'm going to just do it with one strand. We've got that weight under there. We don't have enough, we don't really have a lot of space to build too much bulk here. So I'm going to take one strand of peacock herl, just catch it in. That's 3 wraps right there, and I'm going to leave my thread up behind the bead, but not immediately behind the bead because we've still got to catch off this wing case and we've still got some legs to put on. So go ahead and 4 or 5 turns of this peacock herl till you get up to the front of the thorax and catch it off. Two wraps should be good there. So next up are the legs. Just take a small partridge feather, either natural or brown would be fine. Cut out that little V-notch in it so you've got the legs coming off both sides. And I will just lay it down right over the back there and then put a loose wrap or 2 to check my position. Make sure my legs are coming off the side like I want. And if they're not perfect, you can oftentimes use this wing case to help position them. So I think we're close enough right there. And I've got 2 wraps holding that partridge in. So that's enough to go ahead and snip this off. Now let's wrap this wing case over. I'm going to do it one at a time. I'm going to do the thin skin and put 1 wrap on it and check it. Okay, I think that's going to be fine. Now I'll put this flash, this pearlescent flash, Mirage flash, I guess, with the second wrap. So now the thin skin is held with 2 wraps, the flash is held with 1, and let's put 1 more before we snip these off. And just kind of pulling this one tight so I can snip way up in there, kind of around that bead. I don't want too much excess, like I'm showing a little bit of excess right there. It'll just be a little bit cleaner and you won't have to expend as many thread wraps to clean up this head. But I think we're going to be fine right here. Let's use a few thread wraps to just try to smooth this area out between the bead and the thorax. Now, I'm going to have enough room for a whip finish and then a drop of head cement. If my thorax was already too big, I would just put a little bit of super glue on right there, do a whip finish and call it done. But in this case, I'm going to have some room. So I'm going to do a standard, probably 3 or 4 turn whip finish here. Pull that tight, just reach in here and saw that thread off. And now here's where this one differs just a little bit. Just take your scissors and snip the little tips off these. Get a little bit of a stubby legs. So there you go, the Hillbilly Copper John. You know, a drop of head cement right there between the bead and the thorax, and you'll be good to go. So that's it, my friends. I appreciate you watching. Pretty fun tie, not too difficult, but looks like it's going to be a pretty effective Copper John pattern. So thanks for watching, everybody. Take care. We'll see you next time.